Everybody ready? Good morning. Thank you for being with us this morning at this Mesa City Council study session. We wanted to start off before we had our regular study session and take a moment to remember Officer Brandon Mendoza, a 12-year veteran of the Mesa Police Department who was tragically taken from us last Monday morning early. We're heartbroken as a city and a community for his loss, and we wanted to take just a moment to have a moment of silence. So if you'll join with us, please. Thank you. Appreciate that. There's been a tremendous outpouring of support for the Mendoza family. We've had a candlelight vigil on Tuesday evening, attended by hundreds. Great support from the community for their family, and we appreciate all of that support. We have the services that are planned, and we'd look to Mr. Brady to give us an overview of what those are.
Thank you, Mayor. Both the viewing and the Mass will take place at the All Saints Catholic Church, which is at 1534 North Recker, which I believe is between Brown and McKellips on Recker. The viewing will be Thursday this evening from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And the Mass will be Friday, May 16th, beginning at 10 a.m. The interment will be at the Queen of Heaven Cemetery, which is on baseline 1562 baseline.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, we appreciate all the support that we can give. If you see any opportunity to help, we'd appreciate you taking that opportunity. Okay, getting to our council study session now. The first item on the agenda is to review the agendas for regular and special council meetings that are coming up. Get to the first page here. Okay, the first page, items 2 through 3C. Items 3D through 4B. Items 4C through 4E. Yes, Councilmember Richens.
I'm just wondering if I can get a little clarity on 4C. I couldn't really tell what service was being provided for that household hazardous waste event. It just wasn't very clear in the report, and just curious as what's occurring out there to require the
Good morning, Mayor, Councilmember Richens. This contract actually covers kind of 3 different scopes. It's the 4 household hazardous waste events that we hold each year, so it pays for the disposal and the labor costs associated with those events.
So is the event run by this outsourced company? Is that what?
Well, it's kind of a combination. There's a lot of city employees that are there. We also have like an electronics recycler that's there. There's several different companies that are there taking the different products.
They're the ones that are actually receiving the hazardous waste and then disposing of it properly.
Right. Their main is the disposal, and they do provide a lot of labor because we've got,
Okay. That's just what was unclear is what was actually occurring under the contract. So perfect.
Okay.
That's all I needed. Thank you.
Excellent.
Wonderful. Thank you. So those remaining items, D and E, anything on that page? Items 4F through 4H, Councilmember or Vice Mayor Glover.
I have a quick question on 4H. If Lenny from Transportation or someone from Transportation is here. Good morning.
Good morning, Vice Mayor. Yes.
Can you give us a brief overview of this, the new process, and how quickly it will be implemented?
No, not a problem, Mayor, Vice Mayor. Neighborhood outreach is still obviously working with the communities out there to locate the areas. We've mapped out all the alleys that are gated and ungated. We have the ones that are gated all mapped out, located. As soon as this contract's administered and we get the master agreement to get it going, we're ready to start putting the gates in. Their neighborhood outreach is going to give us the priority of which ones they want to, or the areas they want to work in. We're trying to group them together and try to best cover the city as fast as we can. We are obviously running into some areas where sometimes the gates don't fit perfect with the alignment with the alley, and we have to work with the neighbors to try to figure those situations out. So as soon as I get the master agreement, we're ready to go. So, and we have a list together ready of projects to go.
Mayor, council, but Lenny, also I think we had talked about, because it's the council's preference, direction,
Yeah.
that we should be gating all the alleys. And so if we go into an area where we have a group, where we have the request by the neighbors, we're also going to look at going ahead and just covering that block with the gate. So we don't have to keep bouncing around the city to try to do that. I think that's the other thing we're going to try to work on.
That's correct,
too,
yeah.
right?
Economy of scale is trying to get as
Right.
many as we can in there because our contractor gave us a very reasonable price, and we want to be able to try to administer as fast as we can.
Great.
Thank you.
You betcha.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay. Next page is items 4I through 4K. Items 5 through 6I on this page. And then items 6J through 6S. Items 6T through 7A.
Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Stars.
wonder if we could get a little rundown on 7A. This is going to change the zoning ordinance for body piercings and tattoo parlors, which I don't necessarily have a problem with. I mean, a lot of soccer moms nowadays getting tattoos. But the question is, how are we going to keep out those bad actors? Say if we had some neo-Nazi white supremacist gang tattoo artists wanting to come in that would create a bad environment, how are we going to protect against those users, make sure that we're, higher level?
You want to start with Ms. Benner
Yeah,
first? Thank you, Ms. Benner.
I'll just start. What we are doing is we're changing the zoning code so that certain, they are a use as of right in certain zones. Under the Coleman case, the court held that the act of tattooing, not just the tattoo, obviously the tattoo itself has always been a free speech. The Supreme Court ruled that the act of tattooing is also protected by the First Amendment and is a free speech act. So
if he advertised that he does it, or she does swastikas or white supremacist stuff, that's an act of free speech, and we would have no authority to regulate that?
that would be right. That would
Okay.
be correct. What we can do, obviously, is if they are breaking some other code that is in our code, violating some other code, we could take action in that regard, but not with regard to what they are, what type of tattoos they're applying.
Okay. So then, looking at the ordinance, it separates from a certain, there's 1,200 feet from schools, from churches, and other tattoo parlors. How does that, if this is an act of free speech, how then can we limit it to 1,200 feet from other
The ordinance is
facilities?
dropping that requirement.
We are dropping that? That's not how I read this. I read that was in the ordinance and was,
It was previously in the ordinance. It would be, we're dropping it. We're basically deleting it from the ordinance.
okay, so I just misread it, that we will actually be, so we will be dropping that. And it will be a use by right in all commercial.
In, yeah, most commercial districts and in most industrial districts.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on this topic? Okay, thank you, Mr. Sheffield. Okay, that was item 7A. Items 8 through 10C.
It was just a ways away.
Yeah, I know, I read that somewhere.
10C. Okay, items 11 through 12G. And items 13 through 15. Nothing there? Okay.
Mayor, on all these items on 12, back
Yes.
up just a little bit, we're going to take this all as one item. We're not going to do those individually.
Ms. Spinner, would you, or Mr. Brady, whoever would like to take that?
12A is a public hearing with regard to all of the city-owned utilities. So we will start with 12A, having a public hearing which will address all the utilities. Then, if the council prefers, we can do a second reading where we can read into the record 12B through 12G, which are adjusting the rates, fees, and charges for each individual utility. And you can take action on those items as one vote.
Okay. Mayor, that would be my suggestion, unless a council member has a specific rate, fee, or charge that they object to.
That they concerns about, or if any public member, yes,
Mayor,
Mr.
just
Brady.
kind of, and this is, we apologize to the mayor that we're kind of throwing him in the deep end on this this meeting. This is probably more complicated meetings to preside at. But what we've done for the council in this agenda, you may notice, we've tried to present all of the consent items early on like we typically do. But then as we get to item 12, now we're moving into the approval of budgets and fees. So what we recommended is that item 12 allow us to have the public hearing on the utility rate increases. And then once you've had that public hearing, then yes, you could then create another separate, if you would, consent agenda for the items 12. Then you'll notice as you turn the page, at the top of page 12, what we're going to request the council then to do is to convene or recess the regular meeting that you're in and convene the special council meeting. As you recall in the past, in order to approve the capital, the CIP, and the budget, those have to be done in a special council meeting. So we'd recess the regular meeting, convene the special meeting, have the public hearings for the CIP and the budget, and then take the action on those budgets, then come back, because we recognize that probably item 13 will have a lot of public participation that evening. So the idea is to get the consent and the budgets completed and done before we move into that item. Does that make any sense?
Everybody okay with that?
So it'll be a little in and out a little bit.
Yeah, well, in, out, and then we're able to get staff and others off and then have that public portion and kind of very orderly, hopefully.
We can just do a single motion for all items 12B through 12G.
Yes.
Yes.
I think once you've had the public hearing and then read those items.
I think we've already talked to Kevin Christopher.
Right.
We'll have him come back up and do a mini consent agenda, read in items 12B through 12G.
Yeah.
Are you going to put them back on a consent agenda, or do you want one of us to make a motion for?
They can't be on the consent agenda because we have to have the public hearing. So we'll have the public hearing, and then the mayor can just ask Kevin to come up and read into the agenda items 12B through 12G and indicate that you will take one vote on those items.
Right. Everybody good with that so far? Yeah, good. Trying to make it go as smoothly as possible and get through all of this.
Oh, we'll fix that when we get there.
Right. Okay, good. Well, we appreciate the clarity on that. Were there any other questions, concerns on the agendas? Okay, good. Thank you. We'll move to item 2 on this morning's study session. It looks like to hear reports of meetings or conferences attended. Who would like to? Anything? Yes. Councilmember Benelli. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we go to that.
I
yes,
blew
sir?
it. We thought maybe it'd be well for the council to get one last summary briefing about the budget, just a reminder of kind of where we are. Do that today, and then so before Monday. So Candace, just kind of give a reminder. I know that we've been doing this forever, it seems like, but since we're kind of at that moment of approval, and Candace didn't want to do this, but I asked her to do this, so that's why she's reminding of me. One more opportunity is to make sure everybody's clear about what's being proposed on the budget. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Welcome.
So, good morning, Mayor and Council. So what we do have this morning is really just a kind of a high-level summary or a reminder of those items that are included in the final fiscal year 14-15 budget. Just as a reminder, our budget is balanced. 14-15 fiscal year budget is balanced. What that means is that our forecasted expenditures for that fiscal year are within our forecasted resources. We continue our commitment in the City of Mesa to providing quality services to residents in a fiscally responsible manner, and this budget continues that commitment to the residents in Mesa. For your final budget totals for fiscal year 14-15, the final budget total is $1.34 billion. That consists of two different portions of the budget. One is the operating portion. The operating portion is $997,315,000. Within that is also an appropriation for contingency. A reminder, contingency allows us the budget authorization in case we receive additional revenues during the year or in case we have emergency expenditures that we need to do if something comes up during the year. It gives us that capacity. It also includes an allocation of just under $49 million in carryover. Again, a reminder on what carryover is. Carryover are those items that were approved in the fiscal year 13-14 budget, but for timing purposes will not actually occur until 14-15. By Arizona state statute, we have to reappropriate that dollar in the 14-15 year, and so the budget includes that. The capital improvement program portion of the budget is $342,685,000. Again, we have carryover in that area. Those are usually the larger one because they are large construction projects where timing can change. The carryover portion of that is $117,277,000 within that.
Question, Councilmember Benelli.
Candace, on the summary sheet that we got, there is a $579,000 CDBG expenditure or revenue source. Do you know what project that correlates to under CDBG?
I do not offhand, but I can go and get all of the detail for you by fund. We have all of our projects by fund that we can show you.
Okay, thank you.
As a reminder, this budget really was a holding the line budget. What we asked the departments to do is really look at the resources that they had in this current fiscal year for 13-14 and really basically say those are the resources you have going into 14-15 and how can we realign those to make sure that we're covering what we need to do within the city of Mesa. While it is a hold the line budget, we were able to address a few areas within the budget. One of those was the assistance to the human services funding. This is general fund revenues that are given to nonprofit organizations to assist in providing services to the citizens of Mesa. That was increased $100,000. The total of that is now, if we include our ABC funds, which we get through our utility donations, the total would be $612,000. Excuse me, $612,000 for the general fund portion, $108,000 for the ABC funds for the fiscal year. We've also, will be implementing a utility payment assistance program. These are $50,000 in our enterprise program that will be set aside to provide direct assistance to those residents who are in need of assistance paying their utility bills. Departments also, again, looked at their resources and aligned, giving themselves some more flexibility. We did talk about how some of the areas have moved some full-time positions to temporary employees and some temporary employees to full-time positions, making sure that we're utilizing the resources that we do have in the most efficient manner. We were actually able to net an additional 4 positions without any additional dollars to the budget, and we'll look at those. We were able to identify and do some true-ups in our our equipment usage rates. As we talked about before, we've had inflationary pressures over the last few years, both in our vehicle usage, what it costs to run our vehicles, as well as our contracts. For example, in our parks area, where our contracts went up significantly between this current fiscal year and this proposed fiscal year. Some of those positions are position totals. Just as a reminder, between this current year and proposed for next current year, we have about 11.5 new positions that were added to our development and sustainability area. This is a direct relation to the increase in construction activity, and those positions were offset with additional revenues. We have added 6 new school resource officers in 14-15. The majority of the cost of that is offset by a grant through the Mesa Public Schools and the Gilbert Public Schools. We have added or scheduled to add 2 new code compliance officers. They are currently scheduled for January of 2015. These are positions that we'll continue to review our revenues to make sure that we can sustain those before bringing them on in January. 8.9 positions have been added to our Parks Department. This is a direct relation to the 2012 Parks Bond election, where the residents asked to have some new parks and some renovated parks, and this is the operations and maintenance costs of those particular additions to the city of Mesa. We've also added 5 new public safety dispatchers. Again, these were part of the reorganization of our current resources. So these 5 new public safety dispatchers were added without any additional increase to the budget. It was a realignment in the fire and medical department. So they realigned their current resources in order to cover these. And then there's just some miscellaneous increases throughout the city for various needs and including some grant opportunities in some of the areas as well. In the city of Mesa, we have proactive management, and that helps us to keep our budget down and our expenses down. Some of the things that we have done and some that are included in this budget is our health insurance rates are currently scheduled to remain at our current rates, that's to the employers and the employees, going into 2015 calendar year. Some of the reasons we can do that because of cost containment measures that we took in the last couple of years are continuing to see the benefits of those, and we're able to keep our costs down. The other thing we're looking at is opening our wellness center this fall, and that we're hoping will also benefit the employees and their families and encourage preventative health care, and hopefully also to divert future medical claim costs by doing that focus on preventative and wellness. We've invested, this budget includes investment in body cameras for the police officers to improve our incident recording, and also hopefully to decrease future filing of claims against the city in our public property and public liability accounts. Solid waste modification of service delivery is being reviewed, and that is to kind of decrease the cost, the windshield time, if you will, and what it takes to actually provide the services. So we're looking at how we can divide the fleet and get the fleet services basically out to where those residents are, as well as the conversion to the natural gas from our diesel vehicles. So we're hoping that's going to do some cost containment in that area as well. We also have the alignment of rates, fees, and charges, and those are the things that you see in your agenda for Monday. Those are where we look at our rates, fees, and charges each year to make sure that we are aligned with the cost that it takes us to provide those particular services, including the utility services. We continue to invest in Mesa in the 14-15 fiscal year budget with continued construction of those new and enhanced parks we spoke of, approved by voters in the 2012 election. The light rail expansion is going right outside our front door right now and continuing on to Mesa Drive with additional plans and to hopefully take it out to Gilbert Road as well. We have a continued commitment to the spring training resulting in addition of a second major league team that will be coming in the next year. So that we'll end up having two instead of just the one. This budget includes those remodeling costs out to that particular stadium. We've also included in the capital improvement program the capacity to service new utility customers in the area in the southeast area of Mesa that we've talked a lot about. A lot of the economic development going on down there requires that additional capacity to make sure that we are able to service those customers when they're ready to come online. And those are included in our capital improvement program plan. Our capital improvement program is a 5-year plan. It is a 5-year plan. It does not obligate the council or the city to any particular project within that plan. It allows us, for planning purposes, to see what we need for capacity and what we need for financing and funding to make sure that we have everything in place to make sure we're continuing to invest in Mesa and have those economic development opportunities. Projects are brought individually to council for approval. When they're brought to council, they are fully funded at that time, meaning we have identified a funding source for those projects before they come before council. Part of the capital improvement program, most of those projects are funded with some type of a dedicated capital funding. What that means is if we did not do a capital project, we could not take those funds and move them to an operating portion of the city. They would have to be just for capital. The major source is utility revenue bonds. These are our utility projects. They're approved by voters and repaid through the rates that we apply to customers who are actually using the services. The other area is general obligation bonds. These are also approved by voters, and they're repaid through a secondary property tax. In the fiscal year 13-14, our current levy is $22.1 million. The Mesa voters in 2013 approved additional projects for public safety as well as streets. The effect of that will be a levy in 14-15 of $33.4, and that is included in the budget before you today. We also have regional funding that works for these particular projects. A lot of that's on street projects that we get through the regional transportation project or program. And then we also have grant funding that's specific to those particular projects that, again, would not be able to be diverted to the operation portion. It would have to stay within the capital portion. We held the line, but when we held the line, we want to make sure that we let everyone know that while we're holding the line, we're still short of the needs for the city of Mesa. Some of the areas that we were not able to address in the upcoming budget were the life cycle or the infrastructure replacements, and those are continuing to build up. As we've gone through this recession, those are usually the things that you hold off on first. Replacement of vehicles, replacement of equipment, those types of things. So we will be looking over the next year to make sure that we have itemized and prioritized all of those needs that have built up over the years so that as funding becomes available, we can apply them to that during the year if funding were to become available. And there's lots of things like the technology. We're very dependent on technology today. Everything's a system, everything's online. Those systems and those need to be upgraded throughout the years. And so we kind of prioritize those, as well as, for example, radios for public safety, increase just building, upkeep, and maintenance, and remodels and so forth. So again, over this next year, we'll be prioritizing those, itemizing those, and making sure that we know if funding does become available, where would that funding be used first to make sure we try to keep up or stay up. City of Mesa, we're always looking forward. We're never looking just 1 year at a time. This budget before you is the 14-15 fiscal year budget, but we're always looking in a 5 to 8 year window. We'll continue to do that over the next year. We'll continue to monitor our expenditures, our sales tax, our state shared revenues, as well as our utility rates coming in. The care is to put it ongoing costs with ongoing revenues, one-time costs with one-time revenues. And that's really where the city's trying to go with that and make sure that we're on track for that so that we're not only balanced, but we're sustainable. So we don't want just a balanced budget. We want a sustainable budget, one that we can do over the next 5 to 8 years. The city has successfully addressed fluctuations in the economy in the past, and we expect to be able to adjust to economy fluctuations in the future. They'll always happen. We'll always look for them, and we'll always adjust our budget to meet those resources. The city's commitment to performance excellence continues. Our goal is to ensure that the effective and efficient use of available resources while we achieve the goals of the city. Are there any questions on the budget for 14-15?
Questions, Mr. Brady?
Mayor, just one item that we want to recognize will be a priority for the city going forward, and the Mayor, you've mentioned this a few times, is that in this budget we have set aside the funds to address being market competitive for both our police and fire sworn personnel. But because of the limited resources we have not been able to address that for the remainder of the employees, and so that will be a top priority for us going forward in this next year. If we to see significant improvements in our economy or savings resulting through the city's efforts, that's something we'd probably want to bring back to the council as soon as we determine that there would be a sustainable opportunity to do that. So I just want to mention that as we move forward. So, and I want to give thanks to Candace and her staff for bringing us through this budget, and the departments for their efforts and really holding the line. That's pretty difficult in these challenging times of the inflationary costs. Appreciate the direction we've gotten from the council to creating this budget forward at this time. So we appreciate it.
Appreciate that. Any other thoughts on that? I wanted to put in my 2 cents. A lot of tremendous work going through with all the different departments, having to hold the line. Your budget office doing a tremendous job. This is going to be even though it's a quiet situation, it's going to be a big win, I think, for the city to get a balanced budget and get us through. And I noted as you were running through some of your bullet points, you hear about these investments that we're making in the budget when you talk about the cameras for the officers, gates for the alleyways, wellness center. Hopefully these are going to result in millions of dollars of savings, just doing things differently, but it takes an investment up front. Even that $50,000 that we have to try and take care of those that have challenges, if you think about what happens there, that elderly resident in the summer that because of a dental need or something is having difficulty paying a utility bill, they don't get the air conditioning they need. What that results in is emergency response, transport to a hospital for dehydration, thousands of dollars of cost to the community. So I think that is wonderful money invested there to try and help folks, obviously to help them through difficult times, but it has a definite impact and a savings in the emergency services and others that we deliver. So appreciate all that you're doing, and we'll take this as a very positive for the community. Councilmember Cavanaugh.
Thank you. I want to extend my compliments as well. This is the 14th budget that I've sat through, and I have to compliment Ms. Brady, your staff, Candace, your staff. This is the smoothest, I think, budget process that I've ever experienced, and I think it really reflects a lot of careful planning and forethought, early start, good consultation with departments in the community. So I just want to commend you. This is really an outstanding job. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any others? Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate the information. Glad we got that. So, Councilmember Benelli, reports on conferences attended?
This past Tuesday, I was invited to attend a Global Cities Initiative, which is a Brookings Institute and J.P. Morgan Chase initiative to bring the Phoenix Mesa area up from 17th in exports throughout the 100 metropolitan areas in the country to number 10 or top 10 list, I guess. It's an effort that will happen over the next 4 years. And the only business that was represented on the several panels that they had was a business here in Mesa, Able Engineering, and Lee Benson spoke of the efforts that the city made through leadership to get his company kind of up and running with their new facility out in Southeast Mesa, and talked about the 40% increase in exports that he's been able to grow his business because of the efforts. So huge kudos to the city for their efforts with Able Engineering. And the other opportunity that I had was to do a Horizon interview with Cindy Ornstein on the market study that for the Art Space Potential Project here in downtown Mesa.
Very nice. Thank you. Others? Councilmember Kavanaugh.
Thank you. Since we last met, I attended 2 events last week that were in connection with the fire department. Thursday night, we had the annual Fire Volunteer Recognition Awards Dinner, which several of us were able to attend. And it was a remarkable evening, hearing about the amazing work that our volunteers do. And again, I want to encourage those watching, if you have an interest in volunteering, there's a wide variety of things that you can do to assist Mesa Fire and medical, but it was wonderful to see the range of ages and occupations and backgrounds of people who volunteer their time there. And then Friday night, Councilmember Luna and I were able to attend the fire recruit graduation from probationary status. Our fire department now has a program where you graduate from the training program, but you're on probation for a year. And this was in recognition for those recruits from Mesa and a variety of other communities that went through our training center last year to become full-fledged firefighters. And again, it was a moving ceremony. And again, I'm not sure the residents of Mesa understand, but our training facility there is a regional facility that serves police and fire from throughout the valley. And it's a wonderful example of regional cooperation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Others? Had a great opportunity last night to meet with the Mayor's Youth Summer of Service group. Wonderful youth. They packed downstairs, getting ready to serve in the community this summer in various projects. And boy, the excitement and the energy, parent support, and we're going to benefit greatly by having that service here in the community. And also, I just wanted to mention that I had traveled with a delegation from GPEC, the state organization for economic development, and we were able to go back to Chicago, meet with some major businesses and site selectors, and very encouraging the possibilities that are there. So our thanks to Mr. Jibginiak and all those that were part of that process. Great visit. So, okay, if there's no other information, the next is scheduling. Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder, tonight is the Friends of Transit Mixer. It'll be 4:30 to 7 p.m. at the Desert Eagle Brewing Company, which is right here on Main Street. So invite everybody to come out for that. Are you going? I may be able to go there early, yes.
Get some pictures. Desert.
It's at a local establishment on Main Street. Desert Eagle. Also, Councilmember Kavanaugh, we're still having the pancake breakfast on Saturday at Rhodes Pool, beginning at 9 a.m., I believe. Okay. The next study session will be on Monday, May 19th. And I also want to let the council know, you may have read this, but I think it's significant, that a survey was completed of the 60 largest cities in the United States. Mesa was ranked number 9 of the best cities to find a job in the United States.
Oh, wonderful.
Highest ranked city in the state of Arizona.
Great. I love it. Good news. Thank you. That's wonderful. Okay, if there's no other information, take a motion for adjournment. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? What was that? Yes, adjourning. Thank you. Okay.